So it's November 9th, 2022, and we are interviewing Don Berg, the person who has continuously lived in Ira the longest. And we're going to ask him some questions about his life in Ira. So, Don, when and where were you born?
I was born February 5th, 1938. I was actually born at the Rutland Hospital. After about 3 days, I came back to Ira. My folks lived here then. And more or less been here continuously ever since. I went to school here, down to the Brookside School, and finished the 8th grade at the little Central School here behind the church. And then I went to West Rutland High School. And after high school, I went in the Air Force for 4 years, and I came back home. And when Carol and I were first married, we did have an apartment in Rutland just for a little while before we moved back to Ira, and been in Ira ever since.
So your family was also from Ira, right?
Right. My folks moved to Ira in about 1929, and it was my mother and father and my older brother. And they rented a farmhouse from up on the back road here from Vernon Fish's parents. And then they bought the house where we all lived, I think maybe 1930, from Robert and Mary Johnston, who we always called Aunt Mary and Uncle Rob, because they were our next door neighbors. But where we lived is down on Route 133, across the road from the parsonage. It's what I now call the Ira Marina, where all of the sailboats and such things are in the front yard. We didn't have those, of course, back in those days, but that's where we lived. And my older sister, Marie, was born there she was born in 1931. And I had another sister who was about 2.5 years older than I am. And so she was born, I think, in maybe late 1935. And then there was me in 1938. And then I had a younger brother, Bill, who was born in 1943. And we lived there. My mother lived there right up until she wasn't able to maintain the home anymore, and that was when she was 96. So that's my main connection with Ira. And then, of course, Carol and I had moved up here on what's called Green Acres Lane, and we had a mobile home on the hill up there first, and then we built the house where I now live in 1986, I believe. We built that one. So that's kind of my life story of where I've been and what I've done.
So what was your childhood like when you were, like a young child?
Well, it was during the Second World War. I don't remember an awful lot of it, but I do remember enough to remember that we had meat rations, and could only get so much meat. And my father at the time was working down in Springfield on a government project down there, and he got extra tire allotment because of having to travel back and forth there. But that, up until I started school, that's about pretty much what I remember of it. I know we were, just plain country folk then.
So, are there any kids from your elementary school that are still living in town or around?
No, none of those are. I was thinking of that. When we were in school, down at the Brookside School, there was 4 of us boys. Don Lincoln, who lived up here where MMA Guns is now, until they moved to Florida. He lived in a house across the road from the schoolhouse. And then there were 2 Johnson boys. There was Edward Johnston and David Johnston, who lived down, farther down toward the end of the line there. Their father had a little farm down there. And so the 4 of us were just 1 year apart in school. 2 of us were 1 year, the other 2 were a year ahead of us. And then when we closed that school, moved up here, then we picked up John Crossman, who just passed away now. So John was with us with the 8th grade, and then through 4 years at West Rutland, because he went there as well. And of course, the girls, the Weaver girls, Regina Weaver, who was coming here to the senior dinners. Yeah, and she just passed away here last year. And then she had a sister, Faith. And then there was Nancy, but she was younger. But that was pretty much what, who I grew up with.
So, do you remember much about what a school day was like what you did in school?
Well, I do remember that there was a prayer every morning before school started, and we did the Pledge of Allegiance. And one teacher had all 8 grades, and it was interesting because, she would have to juggle her time so that everybody got a class and everybody else had something else to do while she was doing that. And the school, remember when we went to school down there, of course, we had, there was electricity there, but for heat, we had a huge old brown stove that burned for wood, and whoever the older boys were, one of them had to get there earlier in the morning to get a fire started. And we got our water, there was no water there, so we got our water from the little stream that runs off the hill, down off from Weaver Hill, under the road there, and we used to go up there and get the water, and that's what we used for washing our hands and stuff, and for drinking. So in those days it was safe to drink water wherever you got it. And so that's pretty much what it is. I know it. And I remember at lunchtime we would all line up, the little kids first, and there would be 2 little basins of water, and they'd wash their hands in one, rinse in the next, and then us older people, as we got older, we were the last to get our hands washed. And, there was no refrigerator or ice box or anything like that. So
you brought your lunch from home.
We brought our lunch from home. They did have a lunch program that the mothers and other ladies around took turns preparing a meal for lunch, and then the older kids would, just before lunchtime, would go to that house and get the lunch and bring it back, and we would, in the wintertime, have hot lunches.
Oh, nice.
And that was, I think, a state project maybe that paid for some of that, because the mothers got a certain stipend for what they did.
That's good. So were there sports? Did you just...
Well, there really was no place for sports. We used to of course, play softball in the spring and then the fall, wherever there was room. When we were over here at the Red Schoolhouse, we played in the churchyard there, church parking lot. And when we were down the Brookside, we played in the field just this side of where the school is. And that was it. We didn't have any other sports. No. And
so during your years in town, did you join some town organizations?
Yeah, we had there was always a 4-H club. Yeah, there was a boys' 4-H club. And of course, when we got to be 14, we joined the Grange. And so I joined the Grange when I was 14. I made it to 60-year membership.
Wow.
So, and then the Grange here just dissolved. There was no more Grange. So that was that. Yeah, the 4-H clubs there again. People would have their kids in at their house, and somebody would, have a lecture or something, and the person that was in charge of the 4-H in Raleigh County here, his name was Mr. Berg, and he used to bring a little movie projector, little screen, and we'd have, he'd have funny cartoons or different things, or he'd have something that would show you, how to change the oil on a tractor or something like that.
So when I was in 4-H, your club was like a sewing club or a horse club, or is that the way they were organized?
Well, actually, there was a boys' club and a girls' club.
Oh.
The girls' club was basically a sewing club. My mother was leader there for I don't know how many years. She'd asked Diane Clayton sometime how she learned how to sew. And so a lot of the girls learned to sew there with her. And then they had other that would do cooking and like that for them. But us boys, it was pretty much just dealing with farm
related.
Yes.
What about Grange? What kind of activities did they do?
Meetings twice a month. And the meetings used to be right here, upstairs here. Yeah. Of course, they were part of the state Grange, and then the state Grange was part of the national Grange. So it was quite active then. We'd have quite a few people that would be here. But there really weren't any activities that they did. They might, have games or something after the meeting, or snacks or things like that. But it was just kind of meetings twice a month, first and third Wednesdays.
I still remember.
I remember that.
So there must have been a lot of farms in Ira when you were growing up.
Oh yeah, there were. Yeah. It's, of course, where the fish creamery, he in addition to having the creamery, had a good sized farm. Of course, pears had a farm. And up the road, Ellis Crampton had the farm where Bob Johnston, Alpha's came from. Pretty much grew up there and then took it over when Ellis retired. And then, of course, Clarence Fish up here had a farm way back then in Vernon, up on the hill. And Stanley Farrell up on the back road and up that way. Shorowski's had farms, yeah. Some were small, some were bigger, but they all managed to.
So they must have had tractors then, right?
Most everybody back then had tractors. They were surprisingly, some of them just getting into the tractors. And a lot of, some of the farmers were just getting into baling their hay. Prior to that, there were 2 or 3 different methods that they used to use. Of course, the old-fashioned method was to rake the hay into windrows and then make tumbles out of it with pitchforks and then manually load it onto the wagon. And then they had hay loaders, what they call hay loaders, which was hitched behind the wagon as it went along over the windrow of hay. It would pick up the hay and put it up onto the wagon. And a couple of the farmers here, Clayton Fish and Stanley Farrell, had what was called a buck rake. And that was a series of long wooden tines on the back of a dump truck. They would take the body off the dump truck, attach this framework, and then they would drop it down onto the ground, and then they would back up the windrow and pick it up. And when they got the tines full, they would just raise it and truck it into the barn and drop it off. But shortly after I was 14, 15, most everybody had got balers by then. Yeah.
So, what were your years as moderator like? Interesting.
It was interesting. Most people in most meetings were very good. And when I was moderator, before I was moderator, they used to have all day long meetings, town meetings. They would start in the morning and then they'd break for dinner and then they'd proceed on in the afternoon. But that had been discontinued before I became moderator. And it didn't change an awful lot. I was moderator for a little over 30 years. And it was just running the town meeting.
Yeah.
Safe that I used to get to run the town for about 2 hours a year. So everybody did what I told them.
So were there issues that you can remember that came up in town that either brought everybody together to work on something or?
Well, I remember at one point there was discussions about what to do with the schools, and at one point they were considering building a new school here and busing all of the students from North Iowa over here to that, which of course when we had a couple of meetings about that was a small revolution. One of our North Iowa residents threatened to throw one of our regular residents here out the window one night. But but people usually, they get a little hot sometimes, but they do settle down.
Yeah.
But at most town meetings, no, it had changed somewhat. I guess years ago, from what I understand, that the day-long meetings, sometimes they got into some pretty feisty arguments, but I wasn't involved with any of that.
So that issue you were talking about with busing everybody to this school, was that when they closed this school? That central school?
Yeah, that would have been about that time.
Was it? I mean, the Brookside school closed. Was there any issue about that when that happened?
It just never developed. Apparently, it was never a feasible place to build a school. There wasn't room enough over here to build a size school that it would need to meet all the requirements. And even more recent years, this was probably 20 years or so ago.
30 maybe.
And,
so that the other schools went out, they just kind of died away. But most of them would have been gone by the time you were. Was it just the Brookside school and the Central school when you were in school?
In school, and then there was, for a while, a little school over in North Island. And that closed, and I guess the kids there had the choice of going to West Rutland or to Castleton, whichever side of the town that they were closer to, and they just closed that probably.
And then there was that school down on the south end of town.
Yeah,
was that there when you?
No, that was just an old building back then.
So the building was still there.
The building was still there because when we were teenagers, we used to play basketball in there. We run a extension cord with a light bulb down from the house that was beside it, and we play basketball in there.
So it was just a big open room then?
That's all it was, just a big room.
Good use for it.
Yeah.
So do you remember other businesses in town? I never saw the ABC stables, but I've heard a lot about that.
Yeah, he had that for a few years, not too many years, 10 maybe, something like that. And of course, Stagecoach Barn was a big business.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, and Creamery. Prior to that, years ago, way back, way before my time, but there was the grist mill that I mentioned before about.
So that light just went off. I don't know if that. The light went off. It still looks fine.
Yeah. Down there was a grist mill down there. Now you're down there in the road. And also a cheese factory across the road. But those were all gone before.
So the buildings and everything were gone. Right?
Yeah, everything. There was nothing either place. No.
So did you go to the Stagecoach Barn?
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, it was interesting. I think I was maybe a sophomore in high school, which would have been about 1952, and the people, the Janices that ran the Stagecoach, had a daughter, Priscilla, that was a year behind me in school. And when she got into high school that year, she was a freshman, she decided that all the girls that were her friends down there were going to go to the prom. And so they, I guess, got between all of them, figured out who they wanted for a fellow to take them to the prom. And so Priscilla had us all come up to the barn and learn how to dance. She had a record player, and we'd, So that was quite, a lot of fun. And it ended up, we went to the prom.
So that's how you learned how to dance, huh?
Yeah. I never did really learn how to dance. But, no, we used to come up a lot to the square dances. My older sister and her husband and some of his sisters' husbands used to come up quite a bit. And,
so it was a pretty popular place.
Oh, it was. It used to be packed. It was very busy. Huh. Yeah, I know. When I was working at Charles Stone Company in Rutland years ago. Had a fellow that worked for me that was a musician, and he played the saxophone and the fiddle, and he said that the group that he played with, they played every Saturday night for 16 years out there at Stagecoach.
16 years.
16
wow.
years. So, yeah. And it was great, because even after I come home from the service, Carol and I got married, we still used to come up and we used to have some great time. Bob and Alpha Johnson, they would be there, and a lot of the other neighbors. We used to have, we still went and had a good time. We were upset when it.
So, a man that used to live here told me that his dad wrestled there. Do you ever remember any?
Oh yeah, that wasn't too much. That was what they called a flying Frenchman, and that was what was his name? McCain? Not McCain.
Machine.
Yeah, Machine.
Machine.
Yeah, he's a big guy. He used to be a boxer. Yeah, but the fellow that bought the Stagecoach after the Janices sold out, he tried to keep the dances going, but he wanted to do it different. He set it up as a BYOB dance hall. Everybody come in separate tables and that, but it just that didn't fly. And then about I think maybe 3 different times he did have professional wrestling up there, and yeah, he was Machine. He lived here in Ira, and he wrestled 2 or 3 times. Yeah, I remember that.
So were you in the group that did the renovations to this after they had, I don't know if condemn is the right word, but after they said we couldn't use it anymore?
Well, I didn't have an awful lot to do with the renovations after it was condemned. Before that, we did a lot of work in different areas, and we put heat. We put a furnace in downstairs because there used to be just a big wood stove over here that had the upstairs, and then there was the same type of stove downstairs and a kitchen stove, and that was the heat. And so we raised enough money and put the furnace in, and then when we put the furnace in, the furnace sat in the corner right near where the door is, where you come over here, and just run hot air pipes here and there. But and then we got water in it. There was no water here years ago. We got water from over where the school was over there. Before they drilled the well out here.
So the school got water first, and then
yeah. So was it school or the church? Maybe it was the church that got the water actually first, and then we came across. And then we did quite a bit of upgrading in the kitchen, putting all those cabinets in, and all that stuff. I was pretty much involved with setting the cabinets and getting those things done, and that was, oh my gosh, that was at least 25 years ago. And then, with the actual, raising the money to do the building so it could be opened up again, I really didn't have a whole lot. I did make one trip to Montpelier with some of the ladies that are here, just to kind of give them a background on the building and why we needed the money to do it and such things as that. But that is pretty much the extent of my having anything to do with that.
So What have been some of the biggest changes that you've seen in town? Like, how would you say Iris changed?
Certainly increase in population from what it used to be. It's some of the other changes. I don't know that it's
pretty much
changed
the same.
An awful lot. No, really. I mean, of course, the schools are closed, and that's a different thing. But I really don't know. I mean, the back roads are still dirt roads.
Yeah.
And that's years ago. This main Route 133 up here was a dirt road up till.
Was that in your lifetime?
In the early 50s, it was paved.
Really?
Up
until the 50s, it was dirt road.
Oh yeah, sure.
So maybe that's that marker. Well, you think it's pretty much the same. The next question was, is life better now or was it better back then? But if it's pretty much the same.
Well, I don't know. We thought it was pretty good back in those days. And it seems to be pretty good now.
Yeah.
So, I mean, things definitely have changed over the years, and progressed, but it's pretty much the same. I don't know. I don't think about going somewhere else to live, but it's a fact I'm going to have to. It's, I don't see an awful big change.
So, do you remember any stories that maybe your parents told you about the olden days, or things that I wish I had talked to my parents more and asked them more about?
Yeah. Well, we always talked, of course, but I don't know about things like that. I wish that I had talked with Stuart Lincoln a lot more, because he knew the entire town inside and out and upside and down. Yeah. I know there used to be up on the road going over the mountain to the Bergside Road over there, that years ago there used to be a gold mine up in there, and there was a farmer that lived up in there with his sister, and near where they lived there was an active gold mine. And Stuart said that he remembered it when he was younger. He has had quite a few years on me, but I had heard that story as well, that there was a gold mine up there. I have tried to look for it years ago up in there, because I knew basically where it was, and it had just all filled in, and there was not any sign of.
Oh, really? It's just been covered up and
filled. Mine.
Darn.
I
was gonna go look for it.
You're gonna go with your little gold finder and go up there and try and find it.
So now it seems like Ira is kind of a bedroom community for Rutland, that a lot of people work in Rutland and live here.
Right.
Was Rutland City always a big draw? I mean, was that where you went to go shopping?
Well, pretty much. West Rutland had a couple of grocery stores, but it never had any, shopping, any stores other than grocery stores. Yeah. So, we used to be a big deal. Years ago, it was Saturday night, the stores were open, and then they changed them to Friday nights. But now we'd go in, and folks would do the grocery shopping, and we'd go to Woolworths, things like that. But no, it was, I would say most everybody depended upon Rutland
But it was like a once-a-week trip? It wasn't...
It was for us. I'm not sure. Not it isn't like... But for people that lived here, that worked, you know.
Yeah.
But so many years way back, so many people were farmers. They didn't have to go to town every day, you know. And but no, Rutland was always the mainstay here. And the rest of, you know, go to restaurants. I don't think they were in West Rutland years ago. I don't think there was a restaurant. A number of beer parlors, but not.
So I think that's the end of our questions. Is there anything else that you'd like to talk about?
Not unless you can think of something else. I've been trying to think since we've been talking if there's anything else that went on that might have, you know, might be of interest. But I know in the town hall here, this was the social point of Ira. When we were in school, we always had Christmas parties, Christmas programs here, and the wire dividing the hall here, and then the curtains, and the school kids would all be up there behind the curtain, and then they, you know, do a play or sing or something like that, and the parents would be back here. The same with graduation.
And Grange happened here,
Grange was here, yeah. I don't know. They used to years ago, there again, before I remember it, but I know my older sister talks about it, that they used to have dances up here. Yeah.
Like square dances?
Square dancing. Things like that they later had at Stagecoach. And they used to have, of course, a lot of times the ladies would put on chicken pie suppers. And it would be, you know, as fundraisers, because they used to, the Parent Teachers Association of ladies would do those chicken pie suppers in the fall to raise money for what was a dental clinic, because they had an agreement with a couple of dentists in Rutland that they were only charged so much per piece of work they did on the child, and the parent only had to pay like 50 cents for each piece of work, and so the women with the pie suppers and raising money like that would furnish the rest of the money. So we called it the dental clinic. And so for years the kids were able to get their teeth taken care of with very small amount of money for the parents, which the parents back in those days didn't have a lot. So.
Yeah.
But that would, and then they used to, in the wintertime, have card parties, and sometimes it would be here, and sometimes in individual homes, depending upon the size of the house that they might have had. And they used to have them once a month during the winter for the parent teachers, and they'd raise the money that they raised at those card parties would go for the teacher to be able to buy extra things for the kids, stuff like that.
So what card games did they play?
King Pede.
What was it?
King Pede.
King Pede.
King Pede, yeah. Yep.
I've never heard of that.
Yep, it's that everybody, well, that's the only one they played, because it used to be a rotating, there were two pairs at the table, and you kept rotating who could they play a round of them, and whichever one of the two people lost, they'd move on to another table. And so they just kind of, through the whole evening, you got pretty much to play with everybody.
Yeah.
And it was a social
Yeah.
thing.
But they raise money, so you pay to play, or
Yeah, I'm trying to figure how much it was, because I honestly don't remember. That I know I used to go because they had to, there had to be some kick in there somewhere in order to make the money.
Maybe it was just an entrance fee or something.
I don't know. I really don't remember. Now, Alter might. Have you talked to her?
Not yet, no.
But she might remember.
I'll have to ask her about that. Did you write that down? Because I'll forget it.
Kimpede.
Kimpede. It's a great game. Yeah. Oh, I always liked it.
So kids played too, or adults?
No, it was mostly adults.
It's adults.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So that just about runs me out.
Well, you've been great, Don. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.